Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very thankful to have this opportunity to talk to you and to talk to the community about some of the work I've been doing for the past, I would say, almost 30 years.
Around the same time that my mother was teaching, around that same time. We're better to start from the beginning. What inspired you to become a school teacher?
Well, in my own family, on my mother's side, there are about there have been 8 or 9 teachers in the family, plus a professor of music. And ever since I was about 12 years old, I always wanted to be a teacher. As a matter of fact, I would play school a lot, and I would always make my sisters and brothers be the students, and I would always be the teacher. So I've always had the idea of becoming a teacher in the back of my mind. And after high school, and I went to school with your mom, Mrs. Donette Ruffin. At the time, it was Donette Wilbright. And I went to school with her, and there was a group of us who were, I would say we were task-oriented, we were focused, we were achievers, we were members of the National Honor Society. And I want to pay tribute to a good friend of ours who passed away not too long ago, Mrs. Joanne Rhodes, the former Joanne Copeland.
Yes,
and we were part of that group, Jeanette Jemison, some of those people who were positive people who wanted to do things. And we worked hard, and we all ended up, Joanne and Donna and myself ended up at Buffalo State College. I sort of took a roundabout way because about the second year, when I was a sophomore, I sort of dropped out, and I got married and had a family. And Donette and Joanne, they went on and continued in their education. But I found my way back, and I really am thankful that I found my way back. After almost 10 years, I went back to Buffalo State College, and I worked and got my bachelor's degree, then came back and got my master's degree, and started a career of teaching in the Buffalo Public Schools. But I've actually been connected to the Buffalo school system for 30, because a lot of people don't know that I started out as a teacher aide, as a full-time teacher aide at this follow-through school, which today is, which is closing, by the way. After 166 years in our city, the follow-through school will be closing. So that's where my career started. And from the very beginning, I've always been a teacher to integrate, at the time, the familiar term was multicultural education. But I've always done that from the very beginning, before they had an organized program, and today they have an organized program. Before it was popular, I was always bringing into my classroom, from the pre-kindergarten, kindergarten classes that I taught many years ago, some aspect of African and African American history. And I remember Marva Daniels, who was principal of Futures Academy for a long time. Before she became principal, she came into my classroom and she did lessons on people like Garrett Morgan, and she brought in the flashing traffic light. I never will forget that. So this has been a part of my, I would say it's been in my blood for all these years. And as a sort of a expanded portion of that, I started a newspaper column called Eye on History, which is 25 years old. It was 25 years old in February. It started in the Challenger, and I want to thank Alnisa Banks for giving me that opportunity. It continues in the Criterion. I also want to acknowledge the Merriweather family for helping me to continue that legacy of Eye on History. So this has always been a part of me. And today at Campus West, we have the African American Center, which was the first of its kind that I started 9 years ago, right here at the school. The first of its kind, I think probably in Western New York. And now I can say, and I feel very good about this, because I had a small part to play in helping to consult and give information to the people and staff at the Dr. Lydia T. Rice School, because now we have 2 African American centers in the school district. And I hope to see, before I leave this planet, I hope to see every school in the city of Buffalo have a resource center where teachers can come and get information about African American history, where children can come and in this particular building, because we're on the campus of Buffalo State College, We get college students who come in here. I've had professors come in here. And this is really where you need to start with the college students who are studying to become teachers, because they don't get this in their curriculum base at all. And so I've had them come in here. I've had them borrow materials and take it into their classrooms.
Speaking of your career, I know I was up here talking with you yesterday, and you kind of said something which was of pretty major significance. Is there anything that you'd like to, by the time people will probably know by the time they see this episode, but just for the record, is there anything that you would like to say regarding your career after all these years of working?
Yes, I finally made the decision to retire from the Buffalo Board of Education as a teacher. But yet, retirement for some people means going and sitting down and relaxing. And yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a lot of that. But I also have a lot of ideas, and the work that I've been doing in the school system with the African Infusion Program, which is a part of the district. It's a district-wide program, and I work with some very good people. Right now, Mrs. Dolores Bolden Milan is the person who is the head of the African Infusion Program. So I see myself continuing to work with this. I see myself continuing to share information with the schools. And if asked, I would certainly want to come in and work with students. So I don't see this although I'm retiring and looking forward to some new things in my life, I still see myself having a role to play in making sure that our students get the knowledge of African and African American history.
Retirement must be nice. I mean, I think I'm going into because I'm in school right now, getting ready to go into a different direction, but I'll be taking a semi-retirement myself from some of the stuff I've been doing, but that's a little bit later on down the road. I know that you have to get to a graduation and time is of the essence. If we could we have a little bit more time, we could probably do like a brief, quick tour of the African American Center for those who have not been to it.
Okay, that would be fine. I would love to do that. And let me just say, the African American Center, the purpose of the center here is to make it available for the teachers and for the students and for the community, because many teachers want to teach this, but they don't have the materials in their classroom. And when you think about the budget cuts and the financial problems that the Board of Education is involved in, it's not easy to order a lot of new things. So I provide that. This center provides books and posters and videos and African artifacts and artwork and a variety of things to help the teachers integrate the teaching of African and African American history into their classes.
And just one more thing, I have to thank Ms. Doyle, because back in 1995 I did a documentary on the legacy of King Tut titled Pharaoh. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but she sure does, and to this day she plays that for her students and they love it. And I definitely have to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And not only have I used it in my classroom, but I also teach African history in the community. I teach at the African Cultural Center. I teach at Maston Park during the summer. And whenever I have a chance, I still play that video. I certainly do.
Okay. All right. Let's do our tour now.
Okay. I would like to give you a tour of the African American Curriculum Center here at Campus West, and explain some of the things that we have in here. The main goal of the center is to provide resources, materials, teaching guides, and information to our teachers so that they can better infuse the teaching of African and African American history into the curriculum all year long, and not just in February, which is what a lot of people tend to do. They tend to emphasize doing this in February because it is Black History Month. And there's nothing wrong with that, and certainly we give the highest credit and praise to Dr. Carter G. Woodson for starting the celebration of Black History Month in 1926. But what I try to do here is I try to share with people that teaching African and African American history should be an ongoing activity, that we should not just wait until February and try to put everything into one very short month when African American history is so extensive. So I try to encourage teachers to do this naturally, to do it all year in their curriculum, from September to June. For example, if they're teaching about science and some of the people who made contributions, that they include African American inventors. If they're doing anything with language arts and poetry, that they include African American poets such as Langston Hughes and the many poets that have certainly made contributions. I'm starting the tour here with some information and some pictures on African art. I like to introduce African art to our young people because often they don't see it. And African art certainly has played a major role in African history. And so I want to show them some of the things that they see here. And also I've been collecting. I don't have a lot of money to do what I do. I don't have an ongoing dedicated source of funds. So a lot of the things that you see in here are things that I have purchased myself. But from time to time I have received grants from some areas in the community, and I'm thankful for that. So I want to show them what an African mask looks like and the role that an African mask might play in the various ceremonies, such as the religious ceremonies and celebrations in parts of Africa. This particular mask is from West Africa. I also bring in other artifacts, and I'm a doll collector, so on this particular table you will see a lot of dolls, and I bring these dolls in, and I use the dolls as a teaching tool. For example, this is a Maasai warrior, and I talk about the Maasai people and the things that they do in their particular lifestyle. I also, this is one of the latest dolls that I've added to my collection. It comes from it is a replica of the Ndebele women of South Africa. And this is how many of the women actually dress. And I talk about what the rings mean, and the apron, I believe, if it's all filled in and has all these designs, it means that the woman is a married woman. If it's a plain apron, it means that she's a single woman. So all of the dolls tell a story. I also have included not just African dolls or that have artifacts or dress from Africa, but also African American. And I've included the Muslim woman in America, because certainly the Nation of Islam has played a part and a role in our history from down through the years. And for many families, they have saved many families, because the men, many of them now have turned away from a negative lifestyle, and now they're positive, productive people in our community. And this is the traditional dress of the women in the Nation of Islam. So I also include that. Also, if we kind of move right along here, there are a lot of books. We have a section where we have books on Dr. King, we have books on Malcolm X, and what I've done 2 years ago, I started the Malcolm X essay contest. And Malcolm's birthday is observed in May 19th is his birthday. So for the last 2 years, I have encouraged students in the 7th and 8th grade to do research and to write about Malcolm X. And the theme of this year's contest was the legacy of Malcolm X. What did his life mean and contributions mean to the African American community? And we had a number of young people who did enter the contest. We have biographies. Some of the biographies are very good for the younger children because they're not real long. And I encourage the children to read about people like Frederick Douglass, people like Rosa Parks, who certainly played a great role in the civil rights movement, people like Harriet Tubman, and also people who have done things in the business world like Maggie Walker, who was a person who was very involved in the banking industry. And then we're going to move along and want to share with you these pictures. I've taken hundreds of pictures since the African American Center has been here. And the pictures tell the story. You know the old saying like that people say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We've had so many activities. This particular one was celebrating 10 years. Well, actually the 10th year anniversary of the center will actually be in November 2004. And so I like to go back and show the many pictures. The pictures show many of the displays, many of the classroom activities. It shows children involved in things. And it also notes that many of our students here at Campus West have contests, writing contests relating to African and African American history. One of the contests I have introduced, well, actually two, is the Dr. Carter G. Woodson Essay Contest, which is sponsored every year by the Afro-American Historical Association of Western New York, along with the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. And every year we have a winner, so I'm very proud to say that. I also introduced the Marcus Garvey Essay Contest, which was sponsored for a long time by the Jamaican and American Association, and we've had students win that contest as well. So the whole goal here is to introduce information, encourage the children to read, encourage the children to do research, and everything in here is aligned. All of the activities are aligned with the New York State standards so that our children are communicating, they are writing, they're doing research, they're reading biographies, because the basis of any learning is reading. If you can read, it opens up a whole door for you. So we can come over here. There are more books over here. And I'm going to point out that in the African American Center, we have a large collection of posters, because often teachers want to do displays in their classroom. Maybe they want to do a display around Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and if they don't have a poster or a picture of him, they can borrow these. We also have posters that feature black inventors, that feature the black abolitionists, that feature historic black women, that also feature black scientists and inventors. Okay, just a couple of minutes. I have a whole series of these particular posters called The Great Kings of Africa, and I want to thank someone in the community who donated her whole collection to me to use into the school system, and that's Mrs. Eva Knowles. Mrs. Knowles has been very distinguished in our community. She's an author, she's a historian. She's retired now. She's a retired nurse. She made history herself by becoming one of the first black registered nurses in the city of Buffalo. And so she's not only donated the Black Kings posters, but she also donated some of her books and other materials that we use in the schools. One of the things I wanted to do is I try to make things easy for teachers, because being a classroom teacher, I know that we're very busy people. We have a lot of things on our plate. So I created a series of what I call learning kits, where I've just taken envelopes and I have put into these envelopes guides, teaching guides, resource information, handouts that they can give to their children, background material on particular subjects. This particular one is the African Burial Ground Learning Kit, because in New York City, there is an African burial ground where in the early 1900s, while building a new federal high-rise, they discovered many bones, and they found out later on that these were the bones of African people who had actually built New York City. So here's information for teachers. We also have a kit on the Underground Railroad. You know, Buffalo being very significant in the Underground Railroad. There's information in here about Mr. Kevin Cottrell and all the things that he's been doing to try to get that a part of our community. We also have one on Juneteenth, because I want people to understand that we have Juneteenth in the city. It's not that we just meet out there and have a great big party, but it is a historical event. It has information, it's very historical, and our children need to understand why we have Juneteenth. So we have that. And we also have Celebrating Women and a variety of other things. We have kits on Dr. Martin Luther King. We also have Kwanzaa kits. And speaking of Kwanzaa, every year we usually set up our table. We do a Kwanzaa presentation to explain Kwanzaa. All right, there's so much in here that I probably could take the next couple of hours talking about the African American Curriculum Center at Campus West. And as I said earlier, we have one now at the Dr. Lydia T. Wright School. But what I would like to encourage is that all the school administrators and the people downtown at City Hall, that they would continue to keep this a part of the public schools, because we need to learn about our history. We need to express it to the children, and we need to tell the truth of history. That's been my goal for the last 30 years. Let's not tell part of the story. Let's tell the whole story, and let's tell the true story of African people.